Close your eyes for just a moment and picture the hinges on an old barn door. You know the kind, heavy iron, a little rusty, creaking every time the wind pushes through. Now picture those same hinges, oiled and moving, smooth as glass, swinging open with one finger. That image right there is the difference between a body that lasts and a body that gives out. And the question I want you to sit with before we go any further is this one. When was the last time you sat all the way down on the floor and stood back up without grabbing the couch, without pushing off your knee, without any help at all? Just stood up the way a child does, without a second thought? If you had to pause to remember, if nothing came to mind, I want you to know that pause is your body trying to tell you something important. And by the time we are done here today, you will understand exactly what it is saying. Here is what almost no one explains to you in a 2-minute office visit. The things that rob older adults of their independence, the bad falls, the frozen hips, the back that screams when you sneeze, the hands that can no longer open a jar. Those things do not happen overnight. They happen slowly, quietly, over years of tiny neglect. And they can be slowed, and in many cases reversed, with something so brief and so simple that most people dismiss it before they even try it. 3 minutes in the morning, that is what we are talking about today. Not a gym membership, not a physical therapist 3 times a week. 3 minutes, done in a very specific sequence, targeting the 3 physical systems that research tells us predict how long and how well you will live. Your hip joints, your spine, and your grip strength. In my 15 years of practice, I have watched patients come through my door convinced that what was happening to their bodies was simply aging, inevitable, unavoidable. And what I have learned slowly and with a great deal of humility is that most of it is not aging at all. Most of it is disuse. Most of it is years of sitting in chairs, looking at screens, and moving in only 1 or 2 directions when the human body was built to move in 6. So let me explain what I mean by that, because the biology here is genuinely fascinating and it will change how you see your own body starting today. Think of your hip joint as a ball and socket. The rounded head of your thigh bone sits inside a cup-shaped hollow in your pelvis, and surrounding it are layers of cartilage, ligaments, muscle, and a web of connective tissue called fascia. It is not a simple joint. It is an entire small universe. And that universe was designed by millions of years of evolution to move in 6 directions: forward, backward, out to the side, across the body, rotating inward, and rotating outward. 6 directions. Now here is the part that should make you stop and think. On an average day in modern life, sitting at a table, riding in a car, walking from the kitchen to the living room, how many of those 6 directions do you actually use? 1, maybe 2. You sit, you stand, you walk forward. That is it. What happens to the other 4? Over time, without use, the muscles responsible for those movements weaken. The connective tissue tightens around them. The nerve pathways that activate those muscles begin to forget how to fire. And after about a decade of this, a decade of using 1 or 2 directions out of 6, your hip joint is operating at roughly half its design capacity. That is not a disease. That is not a diagnosis. That is a rust problem. Just like that barn door hinge that nobody oiled, there was a researcher in Brazil named Claudio Gil Araujo who developed something called the sit and rise test. It is almost embarrassingly simple. You sit cross-legged on the floor and then you stand back up without using your hands, without touching your knees to the ground, without grabbing anything. The scoring runs from 0 to 10 and you lose a point each time you use a hand, a knee, or lose your balance. What Araujo found when he followed thousands of people between the ages of 50 and 80 is nothing short of remarkable. People who scored 8 or higher on that test, meaning they could get up from the floor with ease, lived significantly longer than those who scored 3 or below. And we are not talking about a small difference. The people with low scores were between 5 and 6 times more likely to die within the following 6 years. 5 to 6 times based on how easily they could get off the floor. Now, what does that test actually measure? It measures hip mobility, spinal flexibility, leg strength, balance, coordination. In other words, it measures exactly what we are going to train today. And the reason I bring it up is not to frighten you. I bring it up because this is trainable. At any age, let me say that again, because it matters more than almost anything else I will tell you today. At any age, This is trainable. The hinge can be oiled. The rust can be reversed. Let me tell you about someone I will call Margaret, 7'1", from Tucson, Arizona. She came to my office about 4 years ago complaining of what she called her morning stiffness. She could not bend to put on her socks without gripping the bed frame. She walked with a shuffle that she had started to think of as just how she walked now. I asked her to try sitting on the exam room floor and standing back up. She looked at me like I had asked her to fly. She made it halfway down, grabbed my arm, and said, "I used to be able to do that, 6 months of the kind of daily morning movement I am about to describe to you." And she was not only getting up from the floor on her own, she was demonstrating it to her grandchildren in the backyard. Her words when she came back for her follow-up were, "I feel like I got 10 years back." That is not magic. That is biology working exactly the way it was designed to work. Now let us talk about the spine, because the spine is where most people carry their silent suffering. When people imagine the spine, they usually picture a straight rod, like a metal post. But the spine is nothing like that. It has a natural S-curve with a gentle inward arc at the neck and another at the lower back. It is made of 24 moving vertebrae stacked on top of one another, with soft, gel-filled discs between each pair, and a river of nerves running through the center. And it has to do two things simultaneously that seem almost contradictory. It has to be rock solid, stable enough to hold you upright and carry load, and it also has to be fluid, bending, twisting, extending, rotating. It is both a pillar and a whip. Here is the part almost no one explains to you. Those discs between your vertebrae, the cushions, the shock absorbers, they do not have their own direct blood supply. Think of them like sponges. The only way they receive nutrition and hydration, the only way they stay healthy and resilient, is through movement. When you bend forward, you squeeze the front of the disc. When you extend backward, you decompress it. That squeezing and releasing is a biological pump. It draws in water and nutrients from the surrounding tissue. It is slow, it is elegant, and it only works if you move. When you sit for 8 hours, then ride in a car for an hour, then sit on a couch for 3 hours, those discs are not being pumped, they are not being fed, and over years they begin to dry out. Literally, research published in journals focused on spinal health shows that by the time most people reach their 40s, the lumbar discs have already lost a significant percentage of their water content. Dry discs crack, they bulge, they herniate. This is not something that happens to unlucky people. This is the average modern human spine. And a study looking at targeted spinal mobility work done consistently over 30 days showed measurable improvements in disc hydration, flexibility, and pain reduction even in people with chronic back conditions. 30 days, one movement, less than a minute a day. And now the grip, this is the piece that surprises people most, because when I say grip strength to a 7-0-year-old in my office, they usually smile and say, "Oh, I'm not trying to arm wrestle anybody." And I smile back and I say, "I know." But the research might change how you think about this. There's a landmark study published in The Lancet, one of the most respected medical journals in the world, that followed nearly 140,000 people across 17 countries. What it found was that grip strength was a stronger predictor of death from any cause than blood pressure, stronger than blood pressure. Think about how much attention we pay to blood pressure readings. The number of medications prescribed, the lifestyle changes recommended, the monitoring and measuring, and grip strength, something you could test with a simple squeeze, was a more accurate signal of how long someone would live. Why? Because grip strength is a window. It is not just about your hand. The muscles in your hand are connected through tendons, nerves, and fascia all the way up your forearm, your shoulder, your upper back, your core. A weak grip almost never means just a weak hand. It means a weak chain. And in your 60S, 70S, and 80S, that chain is what keeps you safe. Because what takes people down in those decades is usually not a dramatic single event. It is a fall. A slip on a wet floor, a stumble on a step, a moment of imbalance, and if the grip is strong, you grab the railing and you stop yourself. If the grip is weak, you go down. And a hip fracture at 75 can set off a cascade. 2 weeks in a hospital bed, pneumonia risk, blood clots, rapid muscle loss, and outcomes that nobody wants to talk about in a 1-2 minute appointment. Now, here is where we get practical, because all of this, the hips, the the spine, the grip can be addressed in 3 minutes every single morning with 3 specific movements done in sequence. Let me walk you through each one. The first minute belongs to the hips. You are going to do what is called a deep squat hold. And I know the word squat brings up images of barbells and gym mirrors and people grunting. Forget all of that. The deep squat is the most natural resting position of the human body. Go to any traditional village in any part of the world where people have not been reshaped by chairs, and you will find elderly men and women sitting in a full squat for an hour at a time, completely relaxed, drinking tea, having a conversation. It is our default. Our body knows how to do this. We just stopped letting it. So here is what you do. First thing in the morning, after you wake up, stand with your feet about shoulder width apart. You can turn your toes out slightly, maybe 15 degrees, whatever feels comfortable. Then slowly lower yourself down until your hips are below your knees. Keep your heels on the floor. Keep your chest as upright as you comfortably can. And then you simply sit there, you hold that position for 60 seconds. That is the entire exercise. You are not bouncing. You are not pushing. You are asking your hip joints to open up into a range of motion they were designed for, but have probably not visited in years. If you cannot get all the way down, hold on to a door frame, a countertop, anything stable, and let your body weight gently teach your hips what they used to know. Over weeks, you will need that support less and less. I want to tell you about someone I will call Earl 6'8" from Columbus, Ohio. Earl was a retired machinist, proud man, never complained. But his daughter brought him in because she had noticed he had stopped getting up from the floor to play with his grandkids. He would sit in a chair and watch them. He told me his hips felt locked. We started with a supported deep squat for 30 seconds every morning with his hands on the bathroom sink. Within 3 months, he had worked up to a full 60-second hold without support. At his next visit, he told me, and I will never forget this, "Doc, I got back on the floor with those kids last Sunday. Felt like I was 50 again." His hip flexor flexibility improved measurably. His lower back pain was down by roughly half. 3 months of 60 seconds a day. The second minute belongs to the spine, and the movement is something many of you may have heard called cat-cow or spinal wave. Yogis have been doing this for thousands of years, and modern physical therapy research has caught up with exactly why it works. You come down to the floor on your hands and knees, hands directly under your shoulders, knees directly under your hips. Then you begin to move your spine like a slow wave. You let your belly drop toward the floor, lift your head gently, and allow your lower back to curve into an arch. That is the first half. Then you push the floor away with your hands, tuck your chin toward your chest, and round your spine up toward the ceiling like a cat stretching. That is the second half. You do this slowly, with a full deep breath for each movement. No hurrying, no forcing. You are not trying to push through anything. You are letting the spine move through its full range of motion, one vertebra at a time, like a wave rolling through water. In 60 seconds, at a slow and deliberate pace, you will complete roughly 15 to 20 of these cycles. And while you are doing it, those discs we talked about, those sponges between your vertebrae, are being squeezed and released, pumped full of fluid and nutrients with every breath. The deep stabilizing muscles around your spine, the ones that hold you upright when you are not thinking about it, are waking up and activating. The natural curves of the spine are being restored. Your nervous system is receiving the message that this spine is a living, moving thing, not a fixed rod. Research from institutions, including the Mayo Clinic and published in journals focused on spinal rehabilitation, consistently shows that gentle, consistent morning spinal mobility work reduces chronic low back pain and improves functional movement in older adults more reliably than many expensive interventional treatments. The third minute belongs to the grip, and this one is so simple that I almost hesitate to say it, but here it is. You are going to hang from anything solid. A pull-up bar mounted in a door frame, they cost around $20 and require no tools. A sturdy branch in your yard. A ceiling beam in a garage. You take a firm two-handed grip and you let your body hang. If you cannot fully lift your feet off the floor at first, that is perfectly fine. Leave them touching lightly for support. The goal is to accumulate 60 seconds of hang time. You might do 3 sets of 20 seconds. You might do 2 sets of 30. It does not matter how you get there. Just build to 60 seconds total. Dr. John Kirsch, an orthopedic surgeon, dedicated years of research to this exact movement. He found that consistent hanging just a few minutes a day addressed shoulder problems that had been unresponsive to surgical intervention, simply because the shoulder joint was being allowed to decompress and open in the position it evolved to occupy. Think about it this way. Human beings spent hundreds of thousands of years in trees. Our infants are born with a gripping reflex so powerful they can support their own body weight from the moment of birth. This is not accidental. This is ancient. We simply stopped hanging, and our shoulders, our grip, and our spines forgot that this was ever part of the plan. 60 seconds of hanging decompresses the spine that has been compressed all night while you slept, and all day while you sit. It trains the muscles of the hand, forearm, shoulder, and upper back in exactly the pattern they were designed for. And it builds the kind of grip strength that the Lancet study was measuring, the kind that predicts longevity, that catches you when you stumble, that keeps you independent. Now, before I share what I consider the most important information in this entire video, I want to take a moment and acknowledge something. We have covered a lot of ground together today. You now understand why your hips lose their range of motion and how a squat hold reclaims it. You understand that your spinal discs are living tissue that depend on movement to survive, and how the wave motion feeds them. You understand that grip strength is not a vanity metric. It is one of the most powerful predictors of how long and how well you live, and that hanging trains it in the most primal way possible. If you want to keep all of this in one place, the full breakdown of these movements, the science behind them organized clearly for your specific stage of life, plus 2 other guides I have put together on the medications most worth questioning after 70 and on using everyday foods as genuine medicine. I have compiled all 3 into what I call the complete senior health vault. Everything your doctor would tell you if the appointment lasted an hour instead of 12 minutes. The link is in the description below this video, and if you are watching on a screen right now, you can also scan the QR code that is on screen. No pressure, no rush. It will be there whenever you are ready. But what I am about to share next is something I have never explained this directly in a video before, and I want you focused for it. Here is what I have found in my own practice. After 15 years of watching people try to change their health habits and succeed or fail, the movements are not the secret. I know that sounds strange after everything we just went through, but the squat and the spinal wave and the hang, those have been known for centuries. The secret is consistency, specifically morning consistency. Before your brain has time to talk you out of it, before the day's first distraction arrives, before the first notification on your phone. Here's the biology of why morning matters. When you sleep, your body enters a kind of deep stillness. Your muscles cool. Your fascia, the connective web that surrounds every muscle and organ in your body, tightens like a sheet that has been folded all night. Your spinal discs actually absorb water while you sleep and expand slightly, which is why most people are measurably taller in the morning than in the evening. Your nervous system is running at low idle. And when you go from that stillness straight to picking up your phone, checking news, feeling whatever you feel when you read the first 10 notifications of the day, you are slamming your nervous system from near zero to full stress response in about 30 seconds. There is no transition. There is no warm up. 3 minutes of movement in the morning is that transition. It is a bridge between sleep and waking life. It tells your hips and your spine and your hands, I see you. I am using you. You are part of me, and I am paying attention. And the body responds to that signal in very measurable ways. Synovial fluid, the lubricant inside your joints, think of it like oil in a car engine, gets pumped into the joint surfaces. Blood flow increases to the soft tissues. The brain releases endorphins, which are your body's own natural pain-dampening chemistry. Your nervous system shifts from low power mode into engaged readiness. By the time those 3 minutes are done, the chemical composition of your blood and the signaling of your nervous system are genuinely different from what they were 6 minutes ago. Not metaphorically, literally. Let me tell you about someone I will call Lorraine77 from Portland, Oregon. Lorraine had been managing well-controlled blood pressure and mild arthritis for years, but what bothered her most was what she called her morning hour, the first hour after waking, when she felt, as she put it, like a rusted machine trying to start. She was cautious about any new movements given her arthritis, so we started with just the cat-cow on her bed, not even the floor, for 60 seconds before she reached for her phone. Within 2 weeks, she told me, the morning hour had become the morning 10 minutes. She added the squat hold supported holding the bathroom counter in month 2. By month 4, she was doing all 3 movements daily and told me she had not taken an afternoon ibuprofen in 6 weeks. Now, I always tell my patients, never stop a medication on your own. Bring any changes you notice to your doctor. But Lorraine worked with me to monitor that shift, and it held up. Consistent, gentle movement, done daily, first thing in the morning, changed the trajectory of her mornings and her afternoons. Now, I want to address the mistake that will ruin these 3 minutes if you let it, because I have seen it happen dozens of times in my practice. The mistake is intensity. Someone watches a video like this one, feels genuinely motivated, wakes up the next morning ready to go, and goes too hard. They drop into the deepest squat their hips have ever attempted. They rush through the cat-cow like they are racing a clock. They hang until their hands are screaming and their shoulders are burning, and the next morning they are sore, and the morning after that, still sore, and by day 3 they have skipped it. And by day 4 they have decided it is not for them. This is not a workout. Please let that land clearly. This is not exercise in the way most people think of exercise. This is maintenance. This is oiling the hinges. You go to the depth your body offers you today, not the depth you wish you had. You move at the pace of your breath, not against it. You stop at 60 seconds, even if you feel like you could do more, especially if you feel like you could do more. Because the genius of 3 minutes is precisely that it is 3 minutes. It is so short, so manageable, so honestly easy that there is no excuse that can stand against it. You can do it when you are tired. You can do it when you are traveling. You can do it in a hotel room, in your pajamas, before anyone else in the house is awake. A door frame pull-up bar costs about $20 and installs in seconds. That is your entire equipment requirement. 1 minute in a squat. 1 minute waving your spine. 1 minute hanging. 3 minutes total every morning before you touch your phone. Here is what I want to close with, and I want you to hear this carefully because I think it is the most important thing I say in this entire video. The miseries that people associate with aging, the stiff hips, the aching back, the weak hands, the shuffle, the loss of independence, the research is very clear that most of that is not inevitable. It is the accumulated result of decades of small neglect, decades of not squatting, decades of not hanging, decades of treating the body as something that simply runs on its own, rather than as something that requires daily, gentle, consistent attention. And here is what the medical system rarely tells you, not out of malice, but simply because a 1-2 minute appointment is built around managing conditions that already exist, not preventing the ones that are quietly developing the window to change. This is almost always longer than people think. I have watched patients in their late 70s make genuine, measurable improvements in their hip mobility and grip strength within 3 months. The body is more forgiving and more responsive than the culture tells you it is. So whatever age you are right now, and I would love it if you would drop your age in the comments below, I genuinely read every single one your body. Today is the youngest it will ever be from this point forward. The version of you watching this right now is the most capable, the most adaptable, the most responsive version you will ever have access to again. Whatever you begin today, you are beginning from your best available starting point. Tomorrow morning, before you reach for your phone, before you check anything, before you make coffee, stand up, find a space, and give your body 3 minutes. Squat low and hold it. Wave your spine slowly. Hang from something solid. That is the whole protocol. 3 movements, 3 minutes every morning. This information is meant to educate and inform, not to replace the guidance of your personal physician. If you have existing joint conditions, recent surgeries, or any concerns about these movements, please bring this to your doctor before starting. Never stop or change a medication on your own. Always work with your medical provider on any health decisions. And if this kind of honest, practical, science-grounded conversation about your health is what you have been looking for, there is a lot more where this came from. In the next video, I'm going to share something that surprises nearly every patient I discuss it with. The specific way that the timing of your meals, not just what you eat, but when can either protect or quietly accelerate the loss of the very muscle mass that makes all 3 of these movements possible. It is not about fasting trends or diet culture. It is about the biology of muscle after 65 and what the research actually says. I will see you there.